Thank you for being here. And I love the fact that it's a small group, because that's exactly what we're going to be doing, is working together as a small group. So I want to welcome you to this winter workshop, Practical Mindfulness for One's Well-Being, which can be anything from your spirituality to your emotion to your physical to your mental. Whatever that well-being is part of that. How many of us have experienced the feeling that you don't have a moment to breathe, to come up for air? Don't have a moment to breathe, and you're gasping. Isn't your own well-being in some way affected?
It absolutely is, but it's easier for me to take that out than it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not
what
you should do, but.
Yeah. Well, I want you to just hold that question in mind about, what that experience is and how does that impact us and how does it in particular impact our well-being, because that's really the focus for today that I'm inviting us to be a part of and to engage in. We're pausing, an awareness of saying, I have a choice as to how I'm going to respond to what you're telling me. And that takes practice. And that's where the mindfulness comes in, is to be very mindful about that. So self-reflection could be a variety of things. It could be just simply quieting one's mind in whatever way works for you, if that means putting music on, as part of that. It means to pause. We'll talk a little bit about that. It means maybe sometimes to just step outside the story that we're in so we can see what's going on and listening to what are the opinions and the assumptions and so on that are operating in this situation. And I have found that when I do that, that has a healing impact on my well-being, because that's our focus, healing impact on one's well-being.
This is something that everybody could use. It doesn't make any difference whether you've got a diagnosis or you're stressed out, or this is a self-management skill.
I find that I'm in my head an awful lot. I'm always ruminating, and if I'm not careful, I'm running into things because I'm
Sure.
And this is another attempt to add something really, really good to.
Okay.
And they have these wonderful ideas, and then I go out and I don't do them.
A mindfulness practice, which, by the way, one of the things you'll learn in this book is, so how do I, once I recognize that, how do I pause, recognize that, and then to let that go? Because if the ego, in that case, drives this, then my well-being has been affected, because I didn't sleep well last night because I was thinking about it. That's how it affects one's well-being. And so how do I then let that go and, in turn, affirm what this person is doing? They say, well, why pause? Why should we pause in the midst of everything that we're doing? And, well, they use this quote. They say, well, because there's stimulus that happens to us, and then there's a response. And right before we do that, there is some space there, Megan. It could be big space, could be small space. But it's in that space is where we as human beings have the power to decide, how am I going to choose to respond? That's the mindfulness part. And he says that's where our human growth lies. And if we can recognize that, oh my, how we respond and how we are with not only ourselves but with others can be a dramatic change in the context of how we live our lives. And they say, well, this is a book of ways, of practices. And Nan, you use that word, practices, because that's what it is. That simply just opens up that space between stimulus and response to just simply slow down our reaction long enough to allow a different and more powerful action or attitude. So, if you don't have a moment to breathe, to come up for air, this is going to create a sense of pause for us as to how do I catch myself before I respond, and how do I want to respond? And it can be a transformative experience as part of that. What do you need to give attention to regarding your well-being? That's what this is about. That's why I invited you here, or that's why you accepted, is I want to spend some time focusing on my well-being, whatever that might be for you, Megan, or I need to, well, just as you've done here, that's why I went around and asked you what brought you here. So it could be, Bob is to be present. That could be what you want to give attention to, all right? Nan, you talked about, I'm always in my head. So how can I not be in my head all the time, all right? Sharon, you were like giving attention to all, more, yours is more kind of curiosity is how things kind of overlap. But maybe there's something in the midst of that. Say, for my well-being, this is what I really want to give attention to. The focus has always been on others. So what about myself and this issue of balance? And Megan, yours was curiosity. Well, what's underlying the curiosity for you regarding your well-being? Anyway, whatever comes to your mind, 1 to 3 things. The shortest way to do many things is to do only one thing at a time. Now that seems really rational and so on, but it's far more than that. And so they tell a little story about why that's important to do, or what does that have to do with leadership or our well-being. How can I be conscious, and what happens when I focus on one thing at a time? What would happen if I were to do that? How would that change my daily living? How would that change what I want to give attention to?